Coexistence, Cookby, Splatsin, and Squest, Wayne Christian. Good day, everybody. My name is Chief Wayne Christian of Splatsin. We are Yucwmen. We're part of a Shuswap Nation. Our total territory is 145,000 square kilometers. North to colonial, east to the Rockies, west to the Fraser River, and down this part of the world to Invermere and Splatsin. Our people have lived on these lands since time immemorial. Our ancestors in this historic place that we call Hal or Salmon River gathered here for many years with all the nations around us. We are a people that are 10,000 strong today, 17 communities, and we're one of those communities. We have 10,000 other indigenous people living within our nation, and we have 200,000 guests. In 1910, our chiefs and our old ones that were born before the 1800s made representations to the federal government. It's called the Memorial to Silford Laureate. It was important for our chiefs and our old ones to talk about principles of coexistence, about sharing our lands and resources, and also jurisdiction for the laws of our people. The principle is very important to us today, and so I hope through things that you see in this production that you'll know and understand who we are as a people, that we have dreams and aspirations. And it has been said by the Delgamuukw decision, as the Chief Justice said, that we're all here to stay. And it's very important to us as a people that you know and understand this. The Splatsin people are members of the Shuswap Nation. We have been living in the area we know as Enderby, Maple Lake, out towards Sycamoose or Sycamoose. We've traveled over to the Arrow Lakes. We're right on the boundary with the Okanagan people, with the Okanagan Nation. Our people are a mix of both. We have our historical bounds actually before 1700s went right down to the Okanagan Falls. Like all the sort of areas down along the Okanagan Valley are all Shuswap names, like Skaha Lake near Penticton is actually a Shuswap word for a dog. And we had many battles, I think, with the Tanaka and also with the Okanagan, and we made agreements with them in terms of how we would reside. One of the most critical issues in the history of our people was the establishment of reserves by the Indian agents and that whole process. It's an ongoing battle now. Our people didn't recognize the reserve boundaries at that time, as we sought a way to keep us off our traditional lands. And then one of the most profound impacts that we had was in Sycamoose or Sycamoose, right near the mouth of the river and where the Trans-Canada and the CP Rail crosses the Narrows. That was originally our reserve. It was 200 plus acres. And shortly after it was given to our people, then it was preempted almost immediately by the provincial government. They gave it away to a local settler, and they transferred, or if you will, or traded for lands across the on Mara Lake that are very steep and worthless to our people. And still today we're struggling with that issue and looking for the governments and people to really settle on that score of a specific claim, actually. It's something our people have been working on since 1890. I think in areas like Revelstoke, as an example, people don't realize that we as a people and the Shuswap people use that area extensively. Till the dams were built, and the Revelstoke Dam and the Mica dams. And in fact, some of our communities had their villages and burial grounds flooded. Today, when British Columbia talks about 150 years of celebrating BC, the proclamation, Sir James Douglas came in and proclaimed British Columbia without talking to us, is that it's not a time for celebration for British Columbia because it's 150 years of denial of who we are as a people, and they have systematically, through legislation, taken our people off the land. They're spending millions and millions of dollars defending and denying that we exist and our title doesn't exist and we don't have rights. But the Supreme Court has made 10 rulings in favor of recognizing title and recognizing rights over the last decade. And I think the public as a whole have to start digging into this because it's them that are paying the ultimate price in terms of no certainty in terms of development, but also for our people not recognizing who we are as a people. The Splatsin people were really impacted by the residential school system, and there's many stories about how our people actually attended in St. Mary's over in Cranbrook and also in Kamloops, where they actually were taken out of the homes by legislation, by the Indian Act, and forced to travel, usually in cattle trucks, to these faraway places. And it really disrupted who we are as a people, for our language, and also contributed to many of the problems that we see today. In the 1960s, with the 60 Scoop, our community was really impacted by the provincial government asserting its jurisdiction into our communities for child apprehension. Our community at the time was only about 325 people, and we found that 100 of our children were removed from our homes. That was the reason for us asserting our jurisdiction in 1980 and saying that we wanted to care for our own children. We had laws in place prior to 1960, and we have in place the only community-based child welfare legislation in Canada where our community looks after our own through our own laws. We recognize we have problems, social problems, addictions problems, but again, it's up to us to do something about it. We don't expect outsiders to fix us. We can do it ourselves. And that healing strategy is really based on our traditions and our values of who we are as Shuswap and as Indigenous people. That's what will heal us. Another area that's really critical for us in the next few years is governance. Looking at ways and means for we as elected officials to become more accountable to our community, but also to put in place custom election regulations that create stability for the long term. Another critical aspect is language. Shuswap Nation, our language, it's one of those things that we have to rebuild it, and we see that the Splatsin daycare, they're teaching the young the language, and they're teaching the young some of our ceremonies because and the things that we need to do, and it's very interesting that the young people are picking it up. The young are actually teaching their parents. Other areas I think are economic development. You know, I think without an economy of some form or interaction with the society as a whole, how are we expected to manage our own affairs? As an example, the forest sector, we did a revenue study on the stumpage. In a 4-year period in our traditional territory, the provincial government took off $1.1 billion for stumpage in that 4-year period. And our people had no access to that, and it's on our lands. So it's really about getting revenue sharing, not only the forest, the water, you start looking at BC Hydro, all those things that are within our territory, the mining, etc. That's what we're looking for. So we can resource and do what we need to do for ourselves, and we can coexist with those around us. So much is said about how much we depend on the government. And the interesting part for me is I was involved 20 years ago, and I would say 90% of our funding, our financial resources were from the federal government. And today it's only 60%. We have a 40% of our own source revenue. And it's the amount of monies that we put into the local economy is really about standing on our own. And I see a point where we will truly be able to stand on our own once we get access to the resources and truly the recognition of our title. And we can actually contribute to the greater good of the whole society as well as our own people. In the recent decision that Justice Vickers had in the Yucwmenlucwu Nation case, he talked about reconciliation through decolonization is the term he used. I would say it's reconciliation through recognition. Because we need recognition of who we are, we need recognition of our title, we need recognition that we're here to stay. And what does that look like? To us, it looks like coexistence. We talk that out and we live together for the next 100 years.
The first site superintendent on the project.
When people come into our communities, like most of our communities, what they would first of all experience is being welcomed. You know, whether it's in somebody's home, or whether it's into the events we hold, whether it's powwows, into our business enterprises, it's really about being welcomed. Our people have always been like that. And maybe that's partly why we're in the situation we are, because we just opened our arms and said, come on in. Everything that you see around us, you know, the plants, the rocks, the trees, you know, the water, the air. The concept is that we're related to everything. All our relations means every living thing around us. The two-legged, the four-legged, the winged ones, and the plants as well. And I think that's really important in this day and age. And I think when we talk of the greenhouse gases and the effects they have and the devastation that the forests are having, there's the beetle kill that's killing all the trees. And we have in the oceans, you've got these farm salmon, the sea lice are killing all our salmon. And again, it's because there's no respect for the fact that we're related. The salmon to us are people. The salmon people, we treat them as such, and it's really important. 2010 is coming upon us. Again, it's a time for the world to look at the Olympics, but not for us. It's 100 years since our people made declarations to Canada around our title and rights. 2010 is a celebration that we've survived and we're going to thrive into the next century, but it's also about the world as a whole, recognizing we have much to contribute to what people will consider the problems of the world. And I think to me 2010 is about that celebration.